Today we have the Guild Wars 2 Visions of Eternity update. We had that interview a little while ago, talking about some of the feedback they interpreted immediately after the beta. And now we have the description of the fruits of their labors and the iteration upon the elite specializations in Visions of Eternity. Okay, lots of changes in here. Some really, really cool stuff. I think they've really acted on the stuff well. Some stuff that I was worried about, listen, we're completely good. And I think some really solid improvements, especially to Conduit as well. But across the board, I think everything here is getting pretty much better in every way. So that's the good news. A lot of key complaints have been addressed for all of the elite specializations. So let's go ahead and get into it. And of course, we'll get the full notes, all the numbers and stuff when the expansion releases. And don't worry, there'll be stuff that's broken. There'll be stuff that's trash and completely overpowered. They'll obviously fix that pretty quickly after the expansion release. But also, look, first, most important change, guys. Okay, the icons of Antiquary and Luminary are being updated in the first update. Wow, let's go. See, those are the changes that we needed, guys. In all seriousness though, not the worst change in the world, right? In fact, a very good change, because the cards on the Antiquary was a bit weird, and the shield on Luminary was also completely disconnected from the actual theme. So we love to see that, and now you'll be able to feel more connected to the icon that represents your elite spec. But let's get into the actual changes here. So first up is going to be the ooze, the slime, the amalgam. Feedback regarding the amalgam landed in a solid state for the beta. See? Look at these memes. Along with some balance tuning, Amalgam is receiving a new Grandmaster trait, replacing Contagious Mutation, which is the shared strain bonus to allies. Contagious Mutation was a niche trait compared to its neighbors, and its existence limited the effects we could put on strains, as we had to consider them being given to allies. You know, I am really sad to see this go, because this one was really, really cool, especially when you comboed it with other things that meant that whenever you used one of your morph abilities, it would share the bonus, not just the evolve. This is a really, really cool trait. I'm actually kind of sad that they're removing this, and they're essentially just streamlining it down into a boon roll instead of that. I would have liked to see this stay in the game, to be completely honest with you, because I think this is really cool. I love unique things that classes can do, and this was that for the amalgam. So I get it. I understand why they're doing this, and yeah, it might not have survived after the release of the patch. It's one of those things a little bit like, Untamed, like Fervent Force, right, on release. It's one of those things that's really dangerous and can be really, really busted, but for what it's worth, I actually wish they'd kept this in the game. I think this is kind of sad. But what have we got instead? We have new genes, which provides boons to allies when a morph skill is used, as well as additional boon based on which specific morph skill was used. In PvE, the generic boon will be Alacrity. So basically you can play power, well, not just power, but alac DPS on Amalgam, essentially. And because you have more than one morph skill, you're gonna have a bunch of other boons thrown into the mix there as well, which I think is actually pretty cool. With these gameplay changes, as well as some visual effect updates, it's never been a better time to slime. I mean, look, there's not a lot changing here, and that's not a surprise really for Amalgam. It was incredibly well received. It's excellent. It's one of the best elite specs that has ever been designed in the game. So not really a surprise. Cool to have some more build variety. You're gonna be able to play this as obviously a power DPS, a Condi DPS, and then of course a boon DPS with whatever damage type that you like there as well. I think in general, throwing some boons and stuff is also nice, because it's kind of nice to have something you're roaming around in the open world. If you don't give any boons to yourself, it just feels really, really bad, right? Because the way the game works. So you're probably gonna have a bunch of boons getting spewed out when you go ahead and take this new genes trait as well. I'm kind of hoping that what I liked about the Grandmasters is that it did actually modify how your evolve or your morph interacted and how it worked. I'm hoping it's got a little bit of spice on it, and it does change the gameplay up a little bit, and it's not, oh, you just press button, get boon. So it did actually bring a new kind of gameplay style to the table, as opposed to replacing a unique modifier with boons, because that does feel like a bit of a downgrade in my opinion. But overall, I think that's completely acceptable, and it's going to have a lot of applicability. Like, this is going to be a really fun spec to play, and it's going to have loads of ways that you can play it within the context of raid strikes, PvE, PvP, world versus world. The ooze is going to be everywhere, guys. The ooze will permeate the game very, very soon. So yeah, not really much to say about Amalgam because it is already a big win, and I guess they're making it slightly less spicy, but they are giving it like a lot of applicability within the way that the current game works. And look, bit of AoE boons, guys. Nobody complained about that, right? Like, how bad can it be? Okay, so we've got the controversial one, Antiquary. The script is hot, guys, as it always is, okay? Feed the script your ecto gambles, and, well, the script will punish you. Let's go ahead and take a look at what they're doing here. We've taken steps to reduce the amount of guesswork required while playing as the Antiquary. For starters, we've made the split deck trait a baseline mechanic. So in other words, you're always going to get one offensive and one defensive artifact when you pilfer, regardless of what traits you have. So that's baseline now. All artifacts now additionally give a unique temporary passive effect for the Antiquary. I like this a lot. Like, when I played Antiquary, it did feel like the artifacts just didn't have impact, especially not a lasting impact. It was like, oh, I'm an Antiquary, and then for the next 10 seconds, or 20 seconds even, I'm Core Thief. And trust me, guys, that feels a little bit rough, especially in PvE sometimes. So I like this. We're actually getting a lot more flavor. And as you can see here, these are going to be impactful as well. Using the Metal Legion guitar grants an effect that allows the Antiquary to use stealth attacks for a short period of time, even while not in stealth. Cool, actually. Very interesting kind of rule-breaking mechanic for Thief. And again, every artifact is going to have a power like that. So I think this is just going to be a huge increase to the power level of the spec, but also you're going to have a little bit more spice, a little bit more flavor, and a bit more of a differentiated play style, which I think is what some Thief Elite specs really struggle with, and definitely Antiquary struggle with this. It just didn't really feel impactful enough as an elite specialization, and it's going that way. Now, what's scary about this is that we've added more power onto the artifact. Bear in mind, the artifacts still have an element of randomness. This is a pretty spicy effect, right? Like, use stealth attacks where you're not in stealth, but that's random, right? You're not gonna get that every time. So that's still gonna be weird. Obviously, they'll try to make them all comparable in power. I think the defensive ones have a potential to be really interesting too, but that randomness is still gonna feel pretty weird, I think, especially with this, because it's being dialed up to 11 essentially. So, well, I hope you guys like Gamba. Traits have also been reworked. Split Deck has been replaced with Repeat Ransacker, which reduces the recharge of Script Swipe whenever you use an artifact. I like that. It's kind of like the GM trade that also has that cycling element. This has more of a cycling element. Again, let you use the elite spec more. That's good. Possessive Hoarder has had its boons altered and now grants its effects in allies. Okay, congratulations. Congratulations, Antiquary. You guys are a Q DPS. Or something, right? Lastly, Double Edge. The Double Edge skill icons now have a different appearance whenever they can be used while on cooldown to differentiate them from regular skill coordinates. That's good. Nice quality of life visual change. So you can actually have an understanding of what you're doing when you're pressing that button. So really nice quality of life there. To be clear, we don't know what boons that's gonna give. I'm expecting that to be the usual though, right? You know, that's what I'm thinking. It's gonna be quick or a lack, and then it's gonna be, you know, I don't know. It'll give some might, some prot, some this, that, whatever, right? We'll be interested to see what they've actually added into the mix there. Again, it did feel like a spec that was very light on boons, and that is weird given the way the game is right now. So it makes sense that they're giving it some boons. I think it would probably be nice to have some scattered throughout the trait line a little bit more, although that's not entirely necessary because Thief does have Trickery, which does offer a good chunk of support. So if you just like slap a bit of prot here, maybe, you know, combo those trait lines together, and you're in for, you know, you're in business there a little bit, especially because they could also add plenty of boons if they want to the artifact weapons. But it would be interesting if they added, you know, like there was a trait that gave even more boons, right? To specific artifact weapons as well, which would be pretty cool. But yeah, I'd say decent overall. Are the Thief mains going to be happy with it? No, and some of this variance looks absolutely terrifying. This is definitely one of the specs where we need to see what every artifact does, because there's a lot of artifacts, right? We need to see the numbers. We need to see how this actually plays out. You look, I guess ArenaNet succeeded in a way. Like, I'm going to get crucified for saying that. But look, they succeeded in creating something very unpredictable and weird with the Antiquary because, yeah, I don't know entirely what to make of this just yet, to be completely honest with you. We'll have to really wait and see to get the actual notes, the actual details on this one. Hard to say how this is going to go in the actual game just yet. Okay, big wins, big wins for the Conduit here. This was the one that I was the most worried about. It was basically a non-elite spec in the beta, to be completely honest with you. It was just, you press a button and then passive things happen and your spec does nothing. And they very much looked to address that. We've made several elite changes to this elite specialization to make it more rewarding to players who wish to play the Conduit more proactively. So, what did they do? Very simple. They added another button. It's crazy how that works. And the button is cool, by the way. So Cosmic Wisdom is an F3. And now you get like a special effect depending on what legend that you have, right? As a form of the assassin, so when you've got Shiro, you fire lesser enchanted daggers to enemies that are close to you when you use a legendary assassin skill. So when you actually do something. So as opposed to you just get it passively, constantly. You have to perform an input, and then this F3 augments that. Way better, by the way, way better. Because as opposed to everything, it's specific. So whenever you use a legendary assassin skill, or well, while you're channeling impossible odds, you're getting this value. Nice. Invoking a different legend will automatically switch your form to match the new legend, ensuring you'll always be able to use the new functionality of Cosmic Wisdom, even when moving to a different legend. Yeah, nice, that's good. So, and that's also quite interactive, by the way, and this is really what the spec was lacking, because now you can go, okay, when I swap, I'm going to get this effect. And then that effect I can then utilize against my opponent. Maybe I can chain that into another skill. I'm going to get that bonus effect. And then, you know, and vice versa, right? This is a infinitely more interactive and dynamic and proactive ability compared to how it was before. Massive improvement. And even better, we have an extra skill. In place of Cosmic Wisdom, Release Potential has been added to the F2 slot. These are a set of skills that are automatically equipped depending on your active legend. So players will have access to 2 different Release Potential skills based on the legends you bring to combat. Awesome. Certain aspects of these skills will scale based on the amount of affinity. Nice. I like that interaction as well. Because affinity was kind of a weird, almost non-mechanic, but now we're using it as fuel for release potential as well. I imagine it will still have its interaction with Cosmic Wisdom to increase the duration potentially. But you're also going to be able to spend it on release potential too. So you're going to have more of a kind of ebb and flow. You're going to build it up to spend this, but then you can spend it on this as well, which is also inherently more interactive, right? As opposed to having this very one-dimensional resource. So I like this quite a bit. And you're always going to have 2 of these, right? Because you've got 2 legends, and it's going to swap depending on what legend you're in. So yeah, you want to use your other legendary skills, or indeed weapon skills if you go with the other trait, right? To get the maximum effect here. And then again, they give the example for the assassin. It's an attack that sends out 3 increasingly large shockwaves from yourself that damage enemies and immobilize those that are struck by those 3 waves. So indeed, it's powerful. With increased damage and greater immobilized duration, depending on how much affinity you've accumulated. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Way better. Obviously, we do need to try it out, but just from the sound of this, this is a massive, massive improvement. Way better. It's still got some cool traits attached to it, in my opinion. Some pretty exciting stuff, I think, attached to it in there. That was always like a pretty okay thing about Conduit, was the trait design. But now we actually have the profession mechanic design to kind of match that. And I think this is going to be a much more exciting elite specialization to play now that's going to have a lot more depth, a lot more interactivity, and some really cool flavor as well. I hope they've kind of gone, you know, I hope they've gone hard on the animations for all of this stuff, so it looks really cool. You know, we've got scythes spinning everywhere, right? I want to see that. I want to see loads of massive effects, right? Like channeling the cosmic potential of the Revenant out into the battlefield. So yeah, really happy with this. Really, really happy with the Conduit changes. Okay, let's talk about the Evoker. Here we go. A big point of feedback was that the Evoker trait line tried to do too many things. The element-themed traits were flavorful and helped to further define the playstyle of each familiar, but they took up a lot of space that could be used for other things, like addressing the lack of support boons. Very true. We still like what most of these traits brought to each of the familiars, so we decided to make them passive bonuses tied to each familiar. So in other words, all of those traits that kind of gave you a little bonus, that's passive now. So huge, just baseline power increase. Good news, Ellie mains. For example, while you're accompanied by the Otter, you will always heal allies when you grant them regeneration. And I imagine they've just thrown boons at this trait line as well, because it doesn't really have any relevant boon support, to be honest, in any kind of real way. So they probably just absolutely coated the trait line in boons. As we mentioned in the preview stream for the Evoker, we suspected that the utility bonuses could be more than a stun break, and the majority of the feedback we saw agreed. So we went ahead with some improvements to those. I also like how they give zero context. Look, they made it, look, I love this. So we made some improvements to those. Like what, ArenaNet? Like what? I mean, they improved them, guys, I don't have to tell you. They're better now. Yeah, realistically, we can kind of have a bit of guess here. It's going to be more boons in particular, because that was what this thing really, really lacked. Specifically on the healer-oriented ones is where they're probably going to just throw a bunch at them, so you can actually do the healer thing properly as well. You can actually do the support thing properly is probably where they're going with this. We also saw a ton of feedback asking for the ability to enable the auto attack for familiar skills. Our initial investigation found this would require a complex technical change and needs more time to ensure quality and stability. But rest assured, it's a high priority for the team, and we'll release it as soon as it's ready. So basically, probably in QR1, you're going to be able to do this. Maybe not though, because they've already said that the icons are changing in QR1. So it might be QR2. Potentially, if it's a really, really tough tech issue, because look, it happens, right? But I would expect QR1 for this. They're going to want to get that improvement into the mix ASAP. I can't really offer that much input on this, because the changes here are very vague. I like the design they're taking this. I do agree with their diagnosis here, that the traits, they locked you in too much. They weren't flexible enough. They basically ate a bunch of choices on the trait line, and it was like, well, okay then, I guess. And it didn't really have that much flexibility. You weren't flexible enough. Like, it was too connected to what your familiar was too connected to the trait line, right? Now that they've got that passive there, they can hopefully rework, massively improve some of those traits, because some of them are incredibly lame. Like, when you use a heal skill, you do like 1 stack of AoE burning and give regen. Are you kidding me? Are you serious, guys? This isn't vanilla Guild Wars 2 anymore. So hopefully they just juiced the hell out of all of that, got it up to date with the current state of power creep, guys. Come on, we've got to be on that. Although obviously the spec was actually really busted in the beta. It was like 50k DPS. So look, it's going to be 70k DPS. That's the good news. And it's going to give perma boons. But yeah, should be really cool. You're going to have a bunch of options in here as well. Of course, you're going to have boon DPS builds. And again, if they add more boons to it, those boon DPS builds get better, of course, as you're going to have access to additional kind of support to your allies while also applying your key boons. And we love boons, guys. We love boons. We really, really do. And of course, bear in mind, Evoker can do both. Yeah, it can do a lack and quickness depending on if you're going to be what way you're going, right? Because if you go for the hair, you get quickness, and if you go for the otter, you get a lack. So you do have that interesting little switch up there as well, which is pretty interesting stuff. But yeah. I guess I feel fairly positively about this. You know, we don't hate it, guys. And yeah, stay tuned. You're going to be able to autocast soon. Okay, Galeshot. Galeshot aimed high and shot true over the beta week. Very nice roleplay. There's always room for improvement. So here's a bird's eye view of the adjustments we've made. The largest change will be to Galeshot's arrow generation. Again, this is one that doesn't need a lot of changes, right? Just a couple of tweaks. It's in a good spot. It was fun to play. Really cool design, good RP. Gaining arrows was largely a passive experience, and there weren't enough options to add arrow generation to your build, okay? In the beta, we saw that in PvE, most of Galeshot's strength came from triggering the Shrike Grandmaster trait rapidly. We're happy to see Galeshot reward the projectile-focused builds we saw utilizing Shrike. I definitely felt this too, by the way. Playing the non-Shrike build actually felt kind of despair because you just couldn't use your elite spec nearly as much. And yeah, I think when you were playing like the quickness build, you couldn't have it, and it was like, it's over, 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 because you couldn't actually engage with a really fun mechanic nearly as much. And then when you play the full DPS build, you go, yes, it's not over, it's unover, we're so back, we're so back, we're so back. So I think this is a good thing to identify here. So we've got some other options there to generate some more arrows. We're happy to see Galeshot reward the projectile focus builds we saw utilizing Shrike, but we want to make sure playstyles built around the other Grandmasters are also viable or fun. Shrike's arrow generating capabilities are going to be lowered, and Squall skills will now grant arrows on use. Interesting. So they're kind of like redistributing it a little bit and encouraging you to use the utility skills. This will help the Grandmaster traits stay in parity with each other while also making arrow generation a more active process. Additionally, Fetch, the master trait that also aided in arrow generation, is being reworked to Thrill of the Catch, granting an arrow when you or your pet disable an enemy. Like, this is a funny meme here, like with the rename, to be honest. Squall skills will also see usability changes, such as Whirlwind breaking stuns, that's actually pretty juicy, Perfect Storm being castable while moving, and Mistral becoming a dome. Okay, so yeah, the dome is that's the wall, by the way, that you fired the arrows through. Okay, interesting. In competitive modes only, Quarry's Peril and Pelt will grant 2 Wind Force stacks to make it easier to access Hawkeye in higher pressure situations. Lastly, the Cyclone Bow will now remember when it's been set to auto attack. Ha, interesting, okay. Be sure to keep an eye out for a new pet to encounter in Castora that works with Galeshot's Flock Together trait. Ah, yeah, new Ranger pet too, guys. And of course, that can be very build defining, right? Like, remember Jan Theory B, remember Chak. Pets are a big deal for Ranger builds, so that is very relevant. And well, it's a Flock Together, so it's going to be like a, it's a bird type, which is interesting. But yeah, not super surprising here. Couple of tweaks here and there. I'm really liking the improved arrow access there, making the linking the utility skills into the mix is pretty interesting as well. So that you can you get more rewarded for using these, and you can combo them together. You have that interactivity between your profession mechanic and also your utility skills. I always love to see that. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Couple of tweaks here and there to make it a bit more usable in PvP, I think is good, because in PvP it can be much more difficult, obviously, to set up like a relatively elongated combo, right? Because I mean, yeah, right? Like you're getting attacked by like three goons, right? So it's going to be a tough time to set up like a relatively long combo. So make that a bit easier, especially when you're getting pressured. You're using a more defensive ability, you're using like a CC ability, like the immobilized, right? Quarry's Peril, right? And Pelt to give you those extra stacks so you can get access to your power move and then unleash that on your opponent to shove them away or whatever. So that makes a lot of sense to me. There as well. The only thing that's missing here is that the boon access on this build is incredibly mediocre from the PvE context. It basically just gives quickness. They should probably slap a bit of might on it, right? Done. Maybe Fury if they're feeling generous, right? Because that's kind of like the baseline. The baseline for a Q DPS build, guys, is you give quickness, you give might, and you give Fury. And it's Galeshot, so maybe it should give like, honestly, if it gave some AoE super speed in PvE, that would be kind of cool. Because like super speed is one of the few things that not every class in the game has now. So it allows you to do a little special something. If you could give some AoE super speed to your team in some way, that would be rather interesting, I think. To have that, ooh, this is what the Galeshot can do. The Galeshot can bring this to the table when you bring it as your Q DPS, or when you bring it as your DPS even. So you can maybe give it a little bit of extra flavor, a little bit of special something for the PvE support context. But other than that, yeah, I mean, look, let's be honest, guys. Galeshot was a big win, right? Like, I think this was a really fun spec to play. Was one of the ones that landed the best in the beta, and the changes here reflect that. Couple of tweaks here and there. Okay, tighten this up. Okay, move this around a little bit. We're good to go. Okay, so Luminary. Excellent news, gamers. We're not over. I was really worried. It sounded like they were going to be normalizing this mechanic and making it way less interesting by making it not give you a cooldown refund if you only use one of them. and they weren't going to basically extend the cooldown if you use more parts of the tool. I have very good news, guys. Guardians, we are not beating the favorite child allegations here. Goodness me. So instead of actually doing that, they said, look, we're not doing that actually, except maybe kind of. Well, they're doing it in like the monkey's paw way. They just flat out buffed it, guys. Instead of making the cooldown scale from 5 to 20 seconds, good news. It only scales up to 10 seconds now. So they made it just like strictly better, basically. Nice. The maximum recharge is still 15 seconds in competitive, so I think that's fine. But in PvE, it is 10 seconds. So if you use one weapon, you're going to get a 5-second recharge just as before. And if you use more than one, you're going to have a 10-second recharge. I mean, yeah, it's just obviously stronger. That basically halves the cooldown if you use like the full kit in PvE. Nice. So get ready to use these buttons a lot more. I am actually really excited to play this still. It was really fun, in my opinion, in the beta. Really exciting, really dynamic, really fast-paced, and loads of utility packaged into it. Really interesting playstyle with some unique modifiers and all that kind of good stuff. And we've even got new virtues, and the virtue design sounds cool, by the way. So each of the virtues powers up the next usage of their respective radiant weapon, with virtue of justice empowering the hammer, virtue of resolve empowering the staff, and virtue of courage empowering the sword and shield. So each of those virtues has a special bonus. It's going to make your next weapon do something special. I love that, actually. I absolutely love that, to be honest, guys, because you have even more interactivity now. It already felt very interactive to me because you're like, okay, what do I want to use? Each one has a flip over skill. So you've got a total of like, 8 skills and the auto attack, and you can chain them together. And which one do you want to use last? Because then you get a bonus outside. And now the virtues interact with it the other way. So if you use a virtue, you can then buff up your next staff usage, right? And that's another layer. Wow, awesome, love this. One of the best elite specs, I think, that's being added in Visions of Eternity, and they've actually made it more interactive than it was. I was really worried they were going to make it less interactive. They have done the opposite. Okay, a little bait and switch there. Trig got me good with that one, or I guess it was CMC actually. So yeah, really, really cool. We love to see that. Did they mention anything about the auto attack? I don't think they really did that. We reduced the, yeah, and they renamed the Shroud to Radiant Forge. But yeah, actually, after reading this, no complaints. In fact, I'm more excited now to actually play this. This sounds absolutely awesome, especially because these virtues are going to do something a little bit different as well. But yeah, this sounds fantastic. Very, very good changes overall. I think that there's really nothing to complain about here from the Luminary or Guardian perspective. I would maybe complain that I actually do think it was better having a 20-second max cooldown, because now it's just like, oh, if you use one, you get a 5-second cooldown, otherwise you get 10. It almost feels a bit jank that it works that way, but look, okay? Who am I to complain about a halving of a cooldown of like your spec mechanic? We can't complain about it, gamers. Okay, it's you just got to deal with it. We got the horror. Oh my God, the humanity of having to deal with this. Goodness me. Yeah, Luminary. We love to see that, and we even get a new icon as well. Wow, Luminaries, Guardians. We're just feasting on this expansion. Goodness me, we love to see it. So yeah, awesome stuff there for the Luminary. Next up is the Paragon. Paragon feedback was largely focused on a few key areas. Many utility skills lacked impact. Some traits felt a bit plain, and adrenaline was hard to come by. We did a pass on the utility skills to add some additional value. Brace yourselves also grants protection. That's a big deal on Warrior, by the way. Warrior prot uptime is very mediocre, while granting bonus adrenaline to the Paragon on both activation and echo. That is nice. Anything, especially stuff that helps you like get started on this spec, is really big. Because I've talked about this in some of the other videos, but one of the issues with the Paragon is that you kind of like, getting started can feel really, really slow. Once you're going, you're cooking, right? Like you're going. But the opener feels very, very awkward, and they're trying to address this using these commands. You can just get these going at the opener so you can get started and actually start playing your spec. We Shall Return and Find Their Weakness also grant some bonus adrenaline on their respective echoes, which we expect to play well with the Reverberation trait to fuel the Paragon's chance. And yeah, of course, that is like very much going to be the case. Like the Reverberation is the one where you get a double use, right? Like, or you know, the echo will trigger twice, essentially. Feverish Pulse, this is the alacrity trait in GM, lacked depth, so we folded in the effects of brisk pacing. This is the one that says whenever you get cooldown reduction, right? Yeah, you get cooldown reduction when you use a chant on your other chants to give it some additional power, so this is just obviously a strictly better trait now. This also frees up a slot in the Master tier for an additional damage focus trait. I actually like to see that there as well, because yeah, Paragon, it had like one DPS trait, but it, you know, that's not enough, right? Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Strengthening Stanzas moves out of GM to fill that slot, making room for a new Grandmaster trait with a bit more active gameplay. This trait will grant bonus damage based on the current motivation tier. The same 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10 thresholds used by chance, rewarding good resource management with a nice damage increase. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. To me overall, they've actually addressed the key issues here. The opener should be a lot smoother. We've got some more protection uptime. We've given a little bit more oomph to these commands. We've got more wings being added. The GM trait is way spicier now, and you've even got some damage potential into the mix there for Warrior. Really positive changes, I think, for Paragon. That, I'm not gonna lie, kind of hits. It basically hits everything I wanted them to fix about Paragon. Like, the only thing I'd gripe here is that I'm not the biggest fan of how Feverish Pulse works, with it kind of incentivizing you to swap a lot and not use the motivation potential to get value out of your chance. But the boon duration is pretty high. So you, honestly, you kind of can once you get a feel for it. And as long as you're able to upkeep the other boons, you probably can squeeze out a little bit of value. And then you can, you know, use your swaps in a more tactical way. So you are able to maintain value out of those chants. You know, you get that passive bonus, like you spend your motivation resource on like an extra effect that pulses every couple of seconds. So, okay, I think we can, yeah, we can work with this. I need to, again, to be really sure, I need to play it and investigate this, but I would say all these changes pretty much hit the mark on kind of like the major concerns that I had, especially when it comes to the adrenaline generation. Like, brace yourselves giving adrenaline and We Shall Return. You're gonna have like a nice bit of fuel, especially early on, that will kind of get you going in engagement. So big changes for Paragon, I think. You know, not crazy mechanical changes, but some serious nudges, in my opinion, in the right direction when it comes to like how the spec is actually gonna play out, and the DPS stuff as well. So you can actually not be a complete wet noodle on your, I mean, look, does this guy look like he's gonna do 0 DPS? Bro's fucking massive, right? He's got a giant spear, and you did Z DPS, okay? But not anymore, my friends. Now you're gonna be pumping. Oh yeah. Okay. Next up, it's the Ritualist. Ritualist Shroud lacked some impact, with a lot of its damage coming from the Spirit's auto attacks. We're putting a bit more damage into the Shrouds themselves, good, and adjusting some cooldowns to give more incentive to stick around in Shroud for a longer period of time. And yeah, these changes are very good. Summon Spirits, while bringing a good amount of utility with its teleport, felt too simple when compared to other iconic 5th Shroud skills. It will still teleport you, but now you get a special skill for each of your spirits. Anguish will fire off a quick flurry of projectiles, so just a burst of damage. Wanderlust gets a giga projectile that dazes nearby enemies, and Preservation will create a protective barrier that destroys enemy projectiles. So we've added another skill, basically. This is almost like adding it's almost like adding 3 skills in a way, because theoretically you can use these separately. You could go 2 into 5, 3 into 5, 4 into 5 immediately. So you've got that extra layer, and it definitely needed that. Like, Rit Shroud felt very weird. It was like, oh, I summon my spirits and then auto attack? I was like, okay, all right then. So this adds a lot more depth to it. That's very good, I think. Rupture skills brought powerful effects, but tearing down spirits was slightly opposed to the core fantasy of summoning and maintaining the spirits. We've rebranded them as innovation skills to give Ritualists the feeling of channeling power through your spirits. The effects are the same, but you don't destroy the spirit. Nice. I still just have this feeling that the spirit's only staying while you're in Shroud should have been how it always worked. I know that sounds weird, but man, like, because I played a couple of Rip builds, right? The heal build felt really weird. I do think this Innovate stuff is going to make it a lot better, but not being able to access it outside of Shroud is so weird. It's gonna, maybe you just have to get used to it. But the thing is, I played the Quickness DPS build, right? And the Quickness DPS build felt 50 times as interactive because all of a sudden you weren't like chained to using your utility in Shroud. Like you could use it whenever you wanted, basically. It was a lot more responsive with how you could do it. And you could use other weapon skills. You weren't just stuck auto-attacking. You weren't stuck camping Shroud because your spirits kept going. And it also felt like a very different take on Necro because you would use your Shroud outside of Shroud, right? Which is kind of the opposite of how it works, right? Because your spirits would drain your life force when you're outside of Shroud and they would keep doing their effects and stuff. So I can't help but think that Rit, in a way, has maybe gone in the wrong direction with how that its class mechanic should have worked. But I do think this is a significant improvement to what it is. If we're looking at it for what it is, this is a big improvement. More abilities to use. Projectile destruction, by the way, not attached to the profession, so you don't have to take CPC necessarily. You might want to take both, right? Obviously. But this is something that's very rare on Necro's projectile destruction. You now have that baked into your kit, no matter what type of rituals you're playing. Very cool. Imagine if they made it reflect. Okay, come on, guys. Come on. Necro doesn't have a reflect. Give it a reflect. Okay, come on. It's 2025, okay? We don't care. Every class can do everything. Come on, let's go. Yeah, that's really cool. So we love to see that. I would have liked to see a rework on the elite skill as well. That isn't mentioned here, so it's probably not happening. Maybe, come on guys, down the line, okay, we can make that happen. So look, as you can tell, I've got a few, I'm a little picky, all right? I'm a little picky. There's a few things that I'd actually still like on Ritualist. I'd love another pass on the visual effects of the weapon enchants, right? I would love another pass on the elite skill too. But okay, we're going in the right direction here. It's gonna be better. I think you can keep your spirits around. They're gonna keep blasting, so you still have that big roleplay presence going on there. And you have a bit more freedom in how you want to use those abilities. Still not the biggest fan of the boon application on this build. They haven't changed the boon application unless they have, and they just didn't mention it in the post, that you have to kind of spam the spirits to apply the boons. Felt a bit weird, especially on healer, because preservation is a mega heal, but it's also attached to your quickness application. Ugh. I don't know how you could do that if you could attach it to the spirits attacking. Instead of that makes it very passive. But I mean, look, we have Harbinger in the game, yeah? Like, it's fine to have, like, and Herald, right? We're okay with having, like, very passive application. So maybe that's a way to go there, because I'm not the hugest fan of how that works. Again, like, one of the things I loved about Luminary was how non-spammy it was when it comes to actually applying your alacrity. You basically just, like, hit one button and boom, that's covered. And all of your other abilities are very responsive. It's a major criticism, I think, of healers, and especially healers, but boon appliers in general, is that you feel very locked into a rotation as opposed to being able to use your abilities more responsively, right? You end up using skills for the boon and not for the actual skill itself, and that feels really weird. So that can maybe use another pass, I think. But other than that, you know, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. They kept my Luminary alive, so I'll be lenient here. Although, was I really lenient, guys? Okay, I think I've got my laundry list of complaints that I want to see improved. But yeah, we take it. We take it for Ritualist. We'll see how it turns out. And finally, here we go. It is the Troubador. Troubador is seeing changes across the board after its beta performance fell a little flat. Reverberating loot is becoming lively loot, sending damaging sound waves towards your enemy while also sending healing tones towards your allies. The Harmonious Harp is being updated to function as a channeled skill, having its healing condensed to give a more impactful feel while also granting distortion at the baseline. This allows the Troubadour's Harp to be a strong healing tool while their loot can handle smaller amounts of more frequent healing. Tails and performance bonuses are also being adjusted. For the healing and utility tails, the performance bonus will grant notes for playing their matching instruments. That's big, actually, because note generation was a bit of a pain. Sometimes you felt like very attached to the note generation from Fortissimo, it felt like, actually, and you just like, you know, you just couldn't feel your engine, especially on certain weapons. And the abilities themselves will always be full strength. This allows for more innate note generation while making their usage more flexible, yeah, so they're just like massive buff there. There's a decent amount of trait adjustments, both small and large. The minor traits are being fully reworked. Symphonic Resonance now grants a unique boon based on which instruments are playing, such as movement speed. A unique bonus, sorry, based on which instruments are playing, such as movement speed with the drum or small pulse ceiling with the harp. This is actually, to me, kind of a big change, because it felt really weird that the instruments playing didn't do anything, right? Like, it was like a thing that you'd use to combo with other things, but it didn't like do anything. So the fact that we're getting a unique mod, love that. Very cool RP. Harmonize will now grant a note whenever you use a Phantasm skill to improve note generation even more. Yeah. This was a key thing. Yeah, they've really got this. Is that the note generation felt really tricky to kind of keep going. You need a lot. It's not like regular Mesmer, right? Where you almost had like a build-up. You really want mega generation on Troubadour. Yeah. I like that a lot. Yeah. Excuse me. Troubadour is being changed from granting allies alacrity to granting quickness, and will do so with the new master trait Life of the Party, which grants boons to allies affected by your lively loot or crescendo skills. Okay. Oh, I like that a lot. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Quickness is interesting, but I kind of like that we're going quickness actually, because the domination of alacrity healers has gone on for too long, guys. Okay, we need to get some fat quickness healers out there, and of course some mega alacrity DPS. And look, we've got the slime, guys. The slime's coming. So you know what? I like that. I like where we're going with that, because it has been that way for too long, in my opinion, which is actually, if you think about it, really locked down diversity, right? If it always goes one way, a lack heal and Q DPS, you're kind of missing half the options in a weird way there, right? Like, you know, when one side's too dominant. So I think this is actually a good move in that direction. And the design on this is also 50 times better. Nice. So that's kind of what we need, right? That's what we need on Ritualist, guys, okay? Yeah, ooh. So basically on your main spammer, like your loot ability, which also heals now, by the way, guys, remember that, right? That's just gonna give those boons out. You're gonna give those boons out, and that gives your harp, you can use it reactively to heal. You can use your harp reactively. You can use your barrier and your crescendo reactively. Nice. Really good change. Makes this spec, in my opinion, way more fun to play from that support perspective. So really, really big fan of what has been done here as well. Yeah, the note generation stuff is also sounding excellent. I'm liking making the utility skills more competitive as well, because the utility skills, look, Mesmer skills are really good, guys. So it's hard to make a good Mesmer skill. You know, look, oh, wow, imagine that, guys. Wow, that's so rough, isn't it? Your baseline core skills are so good, it's hard to make an elite spec skill good enough. Oh, what a hard life being a Mesmer, huh? But of course, now they're trying to buff those up a little bit to make them a little bit more attractive. I do think the elephant in the room actually is still Chrono. It turns out improved alacrity and continuum split are really, really good. So maybe some of those are gonna have to get the axe. But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I think very positive changes actually towards the Troubadour overall, especially to the core gameplay loop from the support perspective. Yeah. I like that. We are in business, guys. We are in business when it comes to the Troubadour, which is honestly one of the ones that I wasn't super whelmed by. I was, you know, I wasn't underwhelmed or overwhelmed. I was whelmed by how it felt to play. But I'm actually way more interested to actually like get a proper, go in deep with the Troubador on launch. And that's it. Guild Wars 2 VOE is launching soon. Okay, we've got the full roster of elite specializations there, guys. Look at that. What a glorious band of adventurers ready to pump into Castora. But yeah, very positive changes overall, actually. Okay, like, as expected, right? They've had a lot of time to cook these up. And I do trust the skills team. Trig and CMC, they know what they're doing. So yeah, really cool changes. I think everyone has won pretty big here. Some of them a little bit harder to gauge, obviously like Antiquary and Evoker in particular. But yeah, massive wins across the board. Huge improvements to these elite specializations. But what do you guys think? Are you hyped up by these? Are you energized? Are you full of life? Which one do you want to try? Definitely let me know. Do you think these changes are good? Do you think they're bad? Okay. Do you think they're something in between? I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts. Let's get some discussion going about all of the elite specializations for the Amalgam, the Antiquary, the Conduit, the Evoker, the Galeshot, the Luminary, the Paragon, the Ritualist, and the Troubadour. Very interested to hear everyone's thoughts. Hope you guys have enjoyed my breakdown of all of these changes. leave your comments, like the video, subscribe, watch my stream on YouTube. Okay, come back and watch every day. Buy the game using my referral link, guys. It's coming. Get the Ultimate Edition, guys. You know you want to. Okay, links are in the description. Definitely check them out and read the article yourself. That'll do it for now. Take it easy, my friends. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.